Chapeau, Mark Rober, again. Freunde, hallo und herzlich willkommen zurück hier auf eurem absoluten Lieblingskanal für qualitätskommentierten Content. Wir geben uns heute das neue Mark Rober Video auf wirklich vielfache Nachfrage. Pranks, Destroy, Scam, Callers, GlitterBomb, Payback. Er bleibt sich treu und baut wieder Glitterbomben. Diesmal aber für Scam-Callers, also Leute, die euch anrufen und versuchen, euch am Telefon abzuzocken. In Deutschland sagen wir auch Enkeltrick. Ja, ich glaube, wir haben kein anderes Wort dafür, legit. Bin mir nicht sicher.
Aber Scam-Callers sind ja nicht nur Enkeltrick.
Nee, also Betrugsversuche halt, genau.
Ja, generell Abo-Shit und
alles in die Richtung, genau.
Gewinnspiel-Shit und dieser ganze Bullshit, der einem da am Telefon verkauft wird.
So,
der Shit.
Sie haben doch bei einer Lotterie mitgemacht. Bestimmt.
Telefonbetrüger ist das Wort.
Bauernfänger.
So ist es, ja. Wir gehen noch mal rein und gucken mal, was der Mark Rober sich da ausgedacht hat, um die Welt ein Stück sicherer zu machen.
Triggerwarnung vorher. Ja, hier viele Insekten.
Ja,
schlimm und so. Hast du Angst davor? Halt dir die Augen zu, aber mach den Klick trotzdem, den View trotzdem voll.
Und sagt euren Omas und Opas Bescheid, wenn Interpol anruft und auf Englisch nach irgendwas fragt, auflegen. Wichtig.
Auch auf Deutsch.
Ja.
Interpol ruft dich nicht an.
Interpol ruft dich nicht an.
Ich wollte gerade sagen, die stehen da vor der Tür.
Das ist aktuell die Betrugsmasche, die umgeht.
Ja, ich wurde auch schon von Interpol angerufen.
Echt, ja?
Ja.
Lustig, witzig. Ich noch nicht. Na gut, komm, wir gehen mal rein.
I had 100 cockroaches here, and I placed them in this James Bond-style contraption that turns this ball screw and forces them out after a specified time delay. And then I put it in a lunchbox for camouflage, and then I release. Wir sind uns schon sicher, dass das wie aus Star Wars diese Müllpresse für die Kakerlaken, oder?
Ja, gefühlt,
also,
ja.
Nur, dass sie nicht zerdrückt werden, sondern raus können.
Ja, okay, alles
nur
klar.
Die Tür ist
sie werden halt rausgeschoben.
Ja. Rausgeschoben.
Release them in this office. Now you might think, that's not very nice, Mark. Some people are afraid of cockroaches. Trust me, I know. And that's exactly the point.
Findet ihr Kakerlaken eklig?
Ja, naja, das Problem ist, ich hatte einmal eine Erfahrung mit Kakerlaken im Beverly Hilton in Los Angeles.
Also wilde Kakerlaken auch noch. Keine Zuchtkakerlaken. Gibt's ja auch zum Verfüttern. Hä, ich hab Zucht. Ich könnte jetzt Grillen holen.
So. LA-Kakerlaken.
Ja,
halt.
Also wilde.
Ja, wilde.
Natives.
Ja, auf jeden Fall. Ich durfte ja noch das Zimmer wechseln und so, aber mein Problem war eigentlich, dass ich mir so dachte, naja, gut. Und dann hatte ich so diesen Moment, so, in dem ich meine Augen aufriss und mir dachte, ich muss um mein Leben rennen, als ich festgestellt habe, ja, die fliegen doch.
Ja, oh, echt? Das wusste ich auch nicht.
Ja.
Wild.
Ja.
Krass, Mann.
Dann wird's richtig räudig.
Okay.
This is ground zero for one of those terrible call centers that scams people of their life savings. A year ago when I released this video about inadvertently stumbling onto the low-level...
Ja, das kennt man ja, die GlitterBomb von ihm. Ja, für Leute, die Pakete klauen. Legende.
Even if it meant taking this fight to the other side of the globe. And so after a year and a half of planning, we infiltrated not one, not two, not three, but 4 different scam call centers. We released cockroaches, smoke bombs, stink bombs, glitter bombs, and then of course we hacked their CCTV so we could watch the whole thing unfold in real time.
Oh Gott.
So buckle up, because this is the wild...
Warte mal, aber ich habe jetzt eine Frage. Wenn ich gerade richtig verstanden habe, hat er die Pakete über den halben Planeten verschifft dorthin. Und da waren Tiere drin. Okay, krass. Das finde ich hardcore.
Nee, ich glaube nicht, dass vor Ort. Ja.
Okay.
Sie haben der hat ja gesagt, sie haben 4 infiltriert. Das heißt, er hat Leute dort.
Okay, ich habe ganz kurz gedacht, so das finde ich schwierig. Okay, wenn er vor Ort ist, dann easy.
Nur die
Traps gebaut und das dann vor Ort beendet, denke ich.
To help put the nail in the coffin of these 4 massive call centers. Now, why would we go after this $20 billion scam industry? Well, we're doing it for the 60 million people who've lost money to scammers in the past year. But more specifically, we're doing it for Bessie, who you might recall from my previous video when I detailed exactly how one of these scams worked.
You're like my granny, Miss Bessie. Do you know this?
Yes.
She was like one of my closest friends.
Oh.
I used to share each and everything with her.
Basically, it starts with an email or a spam call, then they pretend to be Amazon or Microsoft.
Ja, ist das widerlich, Alter.
Das ist, ey, wirklich, du kannst nicht tiefer sinken, als eine arme, richtig nette Oma abzuzocken. Das ist halt richtig low.
Ja.
Oh, Alter, ey, das ist echt widerlich, man, so alte Menschen abzocken auf so eine, und dann auch auf so eine emotionale, widerliche Drecksschiene, ey. Bah.
Also, du kannst doch, also, ich verstehe das immer nicht, dass es Menschen gibt, die so skrupellos sind, die dann noch nachts in den Spiegel gucken können.
Ja, nur nachts, weil sie sich nicht sehen, Olli.
Genau.
Vampire, da geht's.
Man kann es auch andersrum sagen, die sich im Schlaf nicht mehr angucken können.
Okay.
Haben wir beide Sprichwörter erfolgreich vermixt.
And they tell the victim they've been charged $200 for something, but if you call back, you can dispute the charge. Then after they call, they eventually get on the victim's computer and importantly have the victim type the $200 refund amount into a bogus form.
Please enter your refund amount.
Only they take over and secretly type the amount of $20,000 and then they hit enter real quick.
Check everything. Is it correct?
Oh no, this is a mistake. Oh, I screwed up.
Oh, Jesus.
I mean, it was supposed to be a 200 in there.
Nein, das ist die Masche. Die sind ja verbunden mit dem Rechner, lassen das aber das Opfer nicht wissen und in dem Moment, wo die 200 eingeben, drückt er zweimal die 0 und drückt schnell Enter. Damit sie denkt, sie hätte es falsch gemacht. Digga, ist das durchtrieben. Ist das durchtrieben.
Oh, God almighty. I'm exhausted. I can't do this.
Wie macht man denn eine Banküberweisung mit der scheiß Kommandozeile? Das ist doch
Das
wild.
wissen die doch nicht, Mann.
Alter, ist das wild.
Das ist generell Telegrafiestandard.
Ah, echt?
Da gibt es ja verschiedenste Auslands. Das Problem ist, die Bezahlmethoden sind in Europa, gerade in Deutschland, wahnsinnig sicher. In den USA ist das zum Teil noch extrem wild. Da wird noch telegrafiert, da wird noch mit völlig anderen Systemen. Ich meine, die USA haben bis heute Durchdruckmaschinen einfach für deine Kreditkartendaten und reichen die dann in Papierform ein. Also das ist vollkommen abgefahrener Scheiß.
Ja, ja.
Das ist richtig Wild West Country.
Ist aber auch immer noch cool, wenn du da hinkommst und so ratsch, ratsch.
Ja.
Ich erinnere mich
aber daran
gerade.
liegt es auch, dass die sich alle so hoch verschulden können, weil denen fällt Tage und Wochen lang nicht auf, dass nichts gedeckt ist.
Ja, ja. Ich erinnere mich gerade, glaube ich, nämlich, ich weiß nicht, ob es bei Mark Rober war oder bei so einem anderen Typen, von dem ich ein paar Videos gesehen habe, der sich immer als Oma ausgibt, um dann die Scammer wiederum zu verarschen. Und ich erinnere mich jetzt gerade, dass ich irgendwo da vor Ewigkeiten, das kann 1,5 Jahre her sein, dass die zusammenarbeiten wollten. Da hat er das, glaube ich, in einem der Videos schon mal angekündigt, ne? Ah, dann ist das Video jetzt dazu. Das ist ja wild.
Absolutely fried.
Please check your account. Did you really receive that
Kid
money
Boga,
in your
genau, Kid
account?
Boga.
Then they take her to a totally fake, spoofed bank account page where it looks like because of Bessie's mistake, they just sent her $20,000 instead of $200.
Oh my God. Plus 20,000.
Yeah.
Please save my job, ma'am. If I'll not earn for my family will die due to hunger, due to starvation. Please,
Yes,
ma'am,
of
please
course.
don't
I mean,
cry. Please
what
don't
should
cry,
I
ma'am.
do? I
I'm
mean, I
really
can,
feeling bad for you. You are also like my grandmother.
you know, I'm an honest
You are
person.
making me cry
I'm,
now. You are making me
Wie er nicht
cry
aufhört
now.
zu reden.
I'm getting attached to you.
now how do I fix this?
And now you can see how he's weaponized her empathy.
Alter, ist
now to
das eine
fix her
wilde
mistake,
Masche,
she'd be willing
Alter.
to go to the bank and withdraw what she thinks is an extra $20,000 in cash, when in reality, it's $20,000 of her hard-earned savings. And she's gonna send it in the mail to a heartless scammer.
Wie fancy hat denn der gerade das Geld gezählt, Alter? What?
Das liegt nur an dem Geldzähler-Daumen, den die Person hatte.
Hatte der einen Geldzähler-Daumen? Ich
Alter.
gucke jetzt gerade nochmal. Nein, hat er nicht.
Nein, aber
Alter,
können
die
wir mal.
holen das in Bar ab und schicken das per Post.
Das verstehe ich auch nicht.
Das ist wirklich, Alter, das ist Next
Ja, weil
Level.
du auf die Art und Weise ist es nicht elektronisch und du hast keine Chance, je wieder an dein Geld zu kommen.
Das ist weg.
Ja, aber du kannst, es muss doch. Ey, wir haben das gerade übrigens mit 2 Klicks gemacht, dass du das Geld bekommen hast. Aber es gibt leider keine 2 Klicks, wie wir es rückgängig machen können. Du musst es bar schicken. Was?
Ist aber, also manchmal fragt man sich dann wirklich auch so, wie leichtgläubig können alle Menschen sein? Aber ich verstehe es halt, die sind halt null unterwegs in diesem Medium und glauben dann halt wirklich alles. Das ist halt wirklich, Alter, krass.
$20,000 of her hard-earned savings, and she's gonna send it in the mail to a heartless scammer. Now, in case you think they've gotten a lot nicer over the last year, here's another call from a few weeks ago where the scam is to pretend they're from the government and there's some missing taxes that are owed.
I just retired, as I say, last February, and then I was diagnosed with breast cancer in August. So my retirement hasn't been very good so far. And after today, I know it's not your fault, but it's worse now.
Oh, I'm
But as
so
I say,
sorry
I
to
would
hear that.
rather just pay it. Otherwise, I'll be worrying about it, and I'll be worse in my health. You know what I mean? Or even if I have to pay it in 2 halves.
So the scammer places her on hold to talk with the authorities and to see if there's just something that could be done to help her out.
Thank you so much for holding the line, ma'am. I just have...
Okay, alte naive Menschen abzocken ist eine Sache. Alte, naive, krebskranke Menschen abzocken, da kommst du direkt in den 8. Zirkel der Hölle, Alter.
Na,
Holy fucking shit, Alter.
Da wirst du einfach irgendwo hingebeamt und einfach für den Rest der Ewigkeit von den großen Alten anal gefistet, Alter.
Genau, das,
Wirklich, Alter.
das ist wie bei Little Nicky, kommst du direkt neben Adolf Hitler und kriegst jeden Tag eine scheiß Ananas in den Arsch gedrückt. So nämlich.
had a word with the Higher authorities, and I
Und mit
informed
was?
them about your situation,
Mit Recht.
and they are also concerned about your health.
So concerned, in fact, she'll only have to send these scammers $2,000.
Actual amount found out missing in the taxes is 1,489.
Now, last year's operation was effective in getting a handful of people involved in this scam not only covered in glitter, but also arrested. But the problem was, we discovered these were just the low-level mules and supervisors who would then send the bulk of the money back to the actual scammers in India. And while we
Die
did
haben
turn
ja
over
schon mal
all the intel we gathered
zusammengearbeitet.
to the 5 major government agencies that reached out to us to truly avenge Bessie, our goal was to take our glitter all the way to the top and either temporarily disrupt or possibly even
Können wir mal ganz kurz darüber reden, wie viele Leute da sitzen zum Scam? Wie kann das nicht eingestampft werden? Indien, Alter. Was ist da los bei euch?
Indien ja, aber wir haben mitten bei uns in Europa ein Land, was aufgrund der staatlichen Korruption und ein bisschen Mitverdienen da ganz vorne mit dabei ist.
Bestimmt, ja. Ich schrieb auch
Türkei.
gerade. Ja, klar. Hey, 70% Inflation. Hey!
Die Türkei ist da ganz weit vorne mit dabei.
Ach du Scheiße. Hey, gerade jemand geschrieben, ach Olli, das ist Etage 1 von 8.
Ich glaube auch.
Ja.
Das kann gut sein,
Ja,
ja.
hast doch gehört. 40 Milliarden im Jahr.
Oh, mir wird schlecht, ey.
permanently shut down a few of these terrible call centers. It'd be like a special operation, and every special operation needs a special ops team, a target, and a plan. For the team, I turn back to my good friend Jim Browning, who you recall from last year has a YouTube channel that specializes in reversing the connection to the scammers' computers and gaining access to their
Ist er wirklich.
Der Typ ist so geil.
Von dem müsst
wenn
ihr
der
euch
die
Videos
Leute
geben.
dann anruft, zurückruft und die konfrontiert mit ihren eigenen Daten und so. Unfassbar krass.
Ja, den müsst ihr euch wirklich geben. Da habe ich auch ein paar Videos von gesehen. Das ist klasse.
Ja, der ist so geil, der Typ.
CCTV footage.
And is there anything else you want to ask?
Modern Times Hero.
Scam people.
And then another YouTube channel called Trilogy Media would be the boots on the ground in India implementing the pranks, but more on them later. For the target, together we were able to locate and gather tons of incriminating information on 4 different scam call centers. For starters, there's
mussten
Met
sie blurren.
Technologies located in Kolkata, India on the 5th.
Das kann ja unterschiedlichste Gründe haben, aber eine Sache steht fest. Guck mal, wenn die da Security-Kameras hacken und so ein Shit alles. Und Mark Rober ist kein Dummer, wie wir alle wissen.
Ja.
Das Ding wird rechtlich so sicher und abgeklärt sein.
Ich denke auch.
Der lehnt sich da nicht zu weit aus dem Fenster.
Ja.
On the 5th floor of this building. They've been in operation over 12 years and they've got over 1,000
Jahre schon.
agents. Their owner is Mr. Kunal Gupta, and you can even see the rest of their leadership team here on their public website.
Ganz kurz nur. Fick dich, Mr. Kunal Gupta.
And you might ask, well, why would a scam call center have a public website? And the answer is they all do, because they have a very small percentage of their employees do legitimate call center work. So if they get raided by the authorities, they can point to that small group and say their hands are clean, while the real money-making operation runs here behind a secure door. Then we found VRM, also located in Kolkata, on the 12th floor of this building. They also have over 1,000 agents, and they've been in operation
Alter.
for 6 years, and they run 24 hours a day in 3 shifts to target people in time zones all across the globe. Oh, and allow me to introduce to the world Rajesh and Vidya Goenka. the husband and wife co-owners. Next was Onch Info Solutions on the 5th floor of this building. They also run 3 shifts, 24 hours a day, and they've been up and running for 11 years with all their key info shown here. They're located just a block away from VRM. In fact, all 3 of these centers were located within just a few miles of each other here in Kolkata, India, which is a hot spot for scam call centers like this.
Wie muss sich das anfühlen, wenn du einfach zu einer Gruppe von Menschen gehörst, die legit auf diesem gesamten Planeten niemand leiden kann? Niemand, nicht mal in Indien mögen sie die doch, oder?
Was heißt das denn, Alter?
Nicht mal in Indien.
Nicht mal in Frankreich mögen
Nicht mal in Frankreich mögen die euch.
Nicht mal Franzosen können was mit denen anfangen, ey.
Ach Mann, ey.
And finally, there was one more relocated, but we're not releasing public information on them yet, and you'll see why in just a little bit. And so once we'd amassed mountains of evidence against all 4 of them thanks to Jim's handiwork, we hired 10 private investigator types to apply for jobs at each of these centers, and after a few weeks, we had them all in place. Now, in order for them not to arouse suspicion, they had to legitimately scam some people, but we told them to remember the victim's information and then...
Der Monitor war von Zebronics?
Wieso nicht?
Der ist eine Marke, die ich noch nie gehört habe. Aber es ist wild.
Weißt du, was richtig absurd wäre? Weißt du, was absurd wäre, was ja zum Glück nicht der Fall ist, aber es wäre absurd, würde so ein Scam-Calling, würde so eine Scam-Agency einfach Geräte haben von Trust.
Ich glaube nicht.
Aber Zebronics, Best of Electronics.
Deute.
Scam some people, but we told them to remember the victim's information, and then we would reach out and double any money that was lost. And at first, one of our agents in the...
Ich frage mich immer noch, ob das was mit Sodomie zu tun hat. Zebronics.
Ja, ey,
klar.
Aber auch einfach, es ist ja auch egal. Ich meine, sie haben ja gesehen, eine Frau wurde $20.000 abgezogen.
Ja.
Und dann prinzipiell zu sagen, ist mir egal, wir verdoppeln alles.
Verdoppeln alles, Alter.
The VRM call center went against protocol and used his phone to capture some footage for us of the bathrooms and the server rack and whatever this is. But they must have seen him filming with his phone on their
Alter, das hätte gereicht, das hätten sie veröffentlichen müssen. Cancel Culture. Ende. Einfach, die werden komplett gecancelt worden.
Ich wollte gerade sagen, die machen da so eine Wolf of Wall Street Partys.
Ja, safe. Wer hat die Loots
some of the
dabei?
security team showed up at his house. Now, luckily, his roommate knew to lie and say he wasn't home, and he was able to escape through the back alley. But they stayed out in front of his house all day and later sent this message saying the director wanted to speak with him and they would pay him handsomely. And of course, he didn't need to be scared. They were just simply curious what kind of evidence he'd gathered against them already. So from that point on, we reiterated to the remaining 9 to lay really low like a sleeper cell until we were ready to activate the plan. And speaking of the plan, now that we saw what we were up against, we knew we'd have to go full James Bond Q mode with some high-tech gadgetry that could make it past security. Which is why this first prank is just a water bottle. Kind of. I mean, it can function as a normal water
Eigentlich ist es Salzsäure.
bottle, but if you unscrew just this portion of the lid, it reveals a trough. And if you put military-grade putrid-smelling stuff in that trough and then screw the lid back on fully, it creates a perfect seal and you can't smell anything. But then at the exact precise moment you want to release a cloud of death, you just twist the lid like this, allowing the smell to escape through these holes and fill the room. And we're using a water bottle because from looking at the CCTV footage, we know they allow them to have water bottles at their desks, so they'll be able to sneak them past security. Plus, no one's going to suspect that's the origin of the smell. Next up, if you take some hand soap and add just a few drops of the same kitchen-grade food coloring we used on the Devil's Toothpaste explosion,
Lol.
then when you wash your hands, it will leave them stained for at least a day. We'll leave this in the...
Okay, wir sind...
Alter, das ist ja auf Nervig-Level, Alter.
Das ist Kevin alleine zu Hause-Level.
Ja, Mann, ist halt
Ey, wirklich, das ist richtig Kevin allein zu Hause-Level, Alter.
Aber mag ich, das ist die gerechte Strafe.
bathroom. As a
Naja,
bonus,
come
we'll
on.
exactly
Die steigern sich bestimmt
Die
noch.
gerechte Strafe war neben Hitler eine Ananas in den Arsch geschoben
Ja.
zu kriegen.
Das, ja.
Im 9. Kreis der Hölle. Da ist jetzt blaue Hände nicht so schlimm, aber da erkennst du sie wenigstens alle.
Ja,
Aber
stimmt.
da wäre schon die Strafe gilt auch für die Besitzer da, ne? Also das ist schon, ich finde auch hier die Schande und durch die Straßen nackt gepeitscht zu werden, auch eigentlich gut.
Ja.
So viele Tage, wie viele Leute sie abgezogen haben.
You take a box of Sudafed and then print out and paste on some of
Auspeitschen, einmal peitschen für jeden $1.
these labels and convert it to a box of Viagra. Then importantly, you add the name of the boss of the scam call center to the...
Das wollte ich gerade sagen, die sieht aber nicht legit aus. Und dann fiel mir der böse Gedanke ein, ach so, ja, Indien.
Call center to the box like it's his prescription, and then you leave it in the bathroom next to your blue soap. Next up is that custom-built box that can store cockroaches in it. So after a predetermined time delay, the microcontroller will trigger the stepper motor, which causes the wall to slide along this ball screw. That means if you disguise it in a lunchbox, then nothing happens until the timer expires, and then suddenly you get a bunch of cockroaches crawling out of a lunchbox. Although you can put more than just cockroaches in here. And some other ideas we had were bees, because we heard India has some species that don't actually sting, as well as possibly rats, because we already knew from looking at their security footage that once released, the rats can make themselves right at home. And using a lunchbox for camouflage is once again a strategic choice, because we already knew from our recon work, they always make it past security because no one actually checks what's inside. Next up, I love the idea of the chaos that could result if we set off a smoke bomb, but we were concerned that might be crossing a line if the room was too small, because like the glitter bombs, I want everything I do to be exciting, but at the end of the day, relatively harmless. So instead, we found these micro foggers that are basically like massive vape pens. And we also noticed motorcycle helmets were allowed onto the floor and past security. So the plan was to put it inside a helmet like this, and then it would also detonate itself based on a timer. And finally, as the pièce de résistance, we're gonna deliver them a package. Only this isn't an ordinary package. It's GlitterBomb 4.0, which of course, as we all know, is equipped with a pound of the world's finest glitter and an uncharitable amount of fart spray. I can still smell it. And so now that our team target and plan were...
War übrigens in der letzten Staffel American Horror Story fantastisch. Ja, richtig stark
Gott, welche ist denn das? Ich hab Ewigkeiten nicht mehr.
Ich weiß gerade, die, wo sie, ich will es jetzt nicht spoilern, wo sie alle anfangen, diese komische Tablette da zu nehmen, die sie super kreativ macht.
Ich weiß nicht, American Horror Story hat mich, die letzte Staffel, die ich halb gesehen habe, wo es mich komplett lost hat, war diese komische Zukunftsdystopie
mit den Hexen, ja.
Geschichte mit den Hexen, ab dem Zeitpunkt war ich raus.
Die war wild.
Die fand ich so kacke.
Ja.
Klingt richtig geil.
After 1.5 years of prep work, it was time to avenge Bessie and execute the special operation. Step 1 was getting the Trilogy media guys all the way over to India with all the contraptions stored securely in their luggage.
My guys stepping foot on Indian soil.
Now safely on the ground, step 2 was to go pick up those stingless bees that we could put in the lunchbox. But once they'd arrived to the beekeeper, they found out you can't just take a few bees, but you have to take the whole hive.
In the car, dude, no. They're gonna get out. I'm not afraid.
Also, apparently, there's no such thing as stingless.
Digga, wieso ist denn Zlatan Ibrahimovic bei denen dabei? Sag mal, ich bin verwirrt.
Bees.
Oh my god. Oh,
So we punted on that idea and headed to an open-air market where we could at least secure some rats. By the way, the Trilogy...
Ja, du kannst in Indien einfach Ratten kaufen auf dem Markt?
Du kannst auch in Deutschland einfach Ratten kaufen.
Ja, aber nicht auf dem Essensmarkt, Alter.
Wer sagt denn, dass das ein Essensmarkt war?
Die haben da Kokosnüsse getrunken.
Das wird da gereicht.
Das muss ein Foodmarket sein.
Das ist das normale Getränk im Animal Shop bei denen.
Ja.
Trilogy Media YouTube channel is composed of Ashton, who's a former magician, and Art, who played professional basketball in Russia for 8 years. They're just an incredible duo. And speaking of incredible things, this is a good time to point out that the real people of India were just so freaking lovely. It's true that nearly every scam call you get originates from that country, but everyone in India hates these scammers too. They are a tiny, tiny fraction of the total population, and no one wants to be defined by the worst in their midst. Most people we interacted with there had hearts more like Johnny, who's an honorary member of the team and a reformed scammer who's made it his life's mission to do whatever he can to take these guys down, even if that means working some back channels to get our hands on 100 cockroaches.
Alright, let's go.
So with the goods procured, it was time to meet up with...
Wie gut musst du dich in Indien auskennen, um zu wissen, wo man nachts noch Kakerlaken kriegen kann? Das ist schon ein anderes Level.
Genau den richtigen Spot für uns.
Our sleeper agents to the hotel to do some final prep on the contraptions, which went about as well as expected.
Seriously though, are we gonna test it right here? Right here? Can't do it in the bathroom?
Also gar keinen Bock auf Insekten, Alter.
Yeah, no, get him in, all, man. More than marriage.
I see.
Das war zu erwarten, dass das keine gute Idee ist. Renn um dein Leben, Junge!
So klar, dass das zu Chaos wird, ey.
Oh Gott. Wie hieß noch mal der Film mit den Kakerlaken?
War die riesig.
Ja.
Was war das? Johnny's Apartment? Ne, wie hieß denn der? Shit, Mann.
Alter, ey.
Pause.
Wow.
Pause. Accounted for, right? Everyone?
I swear, I would not let you down.
We decided the first call center we'd hit would be Anj, and we were feeling optimistic about our chances. And that's exactly when our special operation received its first major blow. So apparently there's this WhatsApp group that 55,000 scammers all across India belong to, so the different scam call centers can communicate with each other. And because Johnny was still a member of this group from his former days, he saw this message pop up. 2 of us in the town of Kolkata have seen cuss word trilogy people. We followed them, but the driver drove the car very fast to the Salt Lake side. There was 2 Indians with them, and they were shooting a movie. So apparently some scammers had recognized Art and Ashton at the market as the Trilogy Media YouTube guys, because they've confronted a lot of scammers in their 5 years of making videos. Now thankfully,
Jetzt überleg dir das mal bitte. Deren Netzwerk ist so krass, dass die am ersten Tag, wo die da sind, sofort erkannt werden und die Infos in WhatsApp haben. Digga, das ist Next Level.
Out of habit, Johnny was driving in a way that would make it hard for anyone to tail them. But they still were able to pinpoint their hotel location within about a half a mile. But then it got much worse. Might be they are working with the FBI.
Das muss Telegram sein, oder?
Ich habe keine Ahnung, welche App das kann, aber ich glaube, WhatsApp macht Schluss bei 2,50.
Ja. Also WhatsApp kann nicht so viel. Das ist safe Telegram oder so.
So I request all of our brothers to have an eye in Salt Lake. So whenever you see them, you shoot them. Which was super devastating because it seemed pretty clear to me that we'd have to scrap the whole operation because while the mission was important, it definitely wasn't worth anyone getting hurt. But when I brought this up to the guys, they'd already discussed it amongst themselves and decided this was a cause they were passionate about that they were willing to accept some risks. So we decided moving forward, Art and Ashton wouldn't step a foot outside their hotel room, and that's when the second major blow came. Because apparently the group text warning spooked the call scam center so much, they just changed up everyone's assignments, and they were planning on moving all 3 of our sleeper agents to a new floor where there was no CCTV coverage. But this is where we had a stroke of luck, because at the last minute, Johnny thought to have another one of his reformed scammer friends apply for a job. And because he had so much experience on his resume, they hired him on the spot and gave him a more highly trusted role, which meant he could be the one to smuggle in all our gadgets. And so with that, he loaded up, headed in for battle, and an hour later, we had a man on the inside. And by the way, now that we're inside, I'll give you a very quick crash course on what we've learned about how these scam centers operate after watching them for so long. First of all, 90% of the victims are 65 years old or above.
I don't understand that. I don't understand.
Da würde mich interessieren, wenn 90% der Scam-Opfer 65 Jahre oder älter sind, kann es ja nicht mehr so lange dauern, bis diese Masche nicht mehr funktioniert, oder? Die Leute werden ja immer affiner.
Weil diese Leute sich immer besser mit dem Computer auskennen.
Ja. Also das muss ja graduell, muss das ja immer schwieriger für die werden, oder? Dann rein theoretisch.
Das kann durchaus sein. Es sei denn, es geht halt wieder in die nächste Richtung, ne? Also wenn jetzt der nächste Scammer anruft und dann jemandem sagt, Digga, dein Kind auf der Blockchain.
Stimmt, die werden ja auch smarter wieder, die Scammer, ja, das stimmt.
Ja. Bro, deine Tochter hat sich mit NFTs richtig verkalkuliert.
Aber hallo.
Meine Tochter ist 4. Richtig verkalkuliert.
Ey, es gibt eine Grundregel. Eine Grundregel, wenn ihr die befolgt, dann kann euch rein theoretisch nichts passieren. Gilt sowohl für Telefonanrufe als auch per Mails. Gebt keine persönlichen Daten weiter, hört auf niemanden, vertraut niemandem. Wenn euch jemand anruft und sagt, keine Ahnung, Digga, dein PayPal wurde gehackt, dann sagst du, vielen Dank für die Info, legst auf und loggst dich zu Hause in dein PayPal ein und checkst das. Aber gibst dem keine Infos. Also, ne, immer verdächtig bleiben. Sag ich mal so.
Okay. Verdächtig bleiben,
also,
finde ich gut.
Immer auf der Hut sein, so. Das meine ich.
Ja, vorsichtig.
All of this.
They really only make calls during the US working day hours and not on the weekends, because that maximizes their chance the person who picks up will be retired. This is why you never get scam calls on Sunday. They don't have anyone even working the phones. In fact, many of them have an auto dial prompt that says press 1 if you're over 65 years old, and if you press anything else, it just hangs up. The most common scam is the Amazon refund scam, but they also pretend to be Microsoft, McAfee, Norton Antivirus, the IRS, and your bank, and on and on. It's always changing, but it's also always something you've heard of to try and build trust right out of the gate. If you want to know how much they make, well, that information unfortunately is securely held on the boss's computer, so we can't get to it. Although, I suppose if you had access to the internal cameras, you could just watch the boss type his password, and then you'd be able to access their master tracking spreadsheets, which is what we did, and how we know these large call centers make $60,000 per day.
Was zur Hölle?
Oh,
Alter,
lol.
die haben Sicherheitskameras auf ihren eigenen Boss gerichtet und können das Passwort abgucken.
Das ist das geil, Alter.
Checkmate.
Aber 60.000 am Tag ist...
Ja, ist stark. Also
Ach, das ist so krass, Mann, Alter.
aber sie sind noch 13.000 Euro hinterher. For achieve today's target.
Ja.
Wie kann ein Satz schon so indisch klingen? Ich lese das auch nur mit indischer Stimme in meinem Kopf, tut mir leid.
An opener will take the initial calls and they make an average of $7,000 a month. Then if they keep the victim on the phone long enough, they hand it over to a closer and they make on average $15,000 a month. They never say the word scam or victim, instead referring to them as sales and customers. That way they just seem more like a normal office. Although what I think does that job more convincingly are all the walls plastered with...
Alter, die verteilen an die Mitarbeiter des Monats noch so Preise. Wow, Alter, nichts daran ist korrekt, ey.
Das ist so eine richtige, Hurensohn-Auszeichnung, ne?
Ey, aber wahrscheinlich, also für deren Verhältnisse, ist mega krass, oder?
Ja.
Ich finde es unfassbar.
Ja, aber gut, so viele Leute wieder auch arbeiten. Aber ich fand auch gerade wild, was da an der Wand stand. Hier, Sales go up and down. Service stays forever. Digga, ihr zockt Leute ab. Was für Service? Holy fucking shit, Alter.
I think does that job more convincingly are all the walls plastered with inspirational corporate words like synergy or management or process. So that's your crash course on how they operate. And the FTC has put out a list of 4 signs to help spot a scam and 4 things you can do to protect against them. And I'll link to it in the video description. And so now without further ado, we kicked things off with the stink bomb water bottle. And while that was marinating, he went to the bathroom and dropped off the hand soap and the special medication with the boss's name written on the front. And it didn't take long for us to get our first hit on the smell. What was great though is they all kind of covered their noses subtly in silence so the people next to them wouldn't feel accused. Well, for the most part. Then a few minutes later, we had our first bathroom customer who clearly doesn't wash her hands after using the restroom. But then we had a second chance with an apparently more hygienic scammer, and this time we struck pay dirt as he comes out trying to figure out what the heck just happened. And 5 minutes later, you can see him still trying to work it out. And not long after that, we got our first mention of the special package in the bathroom. The audio cut out here, but our agent told us they were laughing and wondering how the boss could possibly leave that lying around. Although it certainly doesn't feel too far off brand, given he uses this as his profile pic on Facebook.
Nice one.
Ja, schön. Stell dir vor, das ist dein Boss. Alter.
And at this point, our agent placed and then triggered the time delay countdown on the cockroach, rat, and smoke bomb traps, so he can now safely make his getaway.
Okay, er hat sich herausgeschafft, sehr gut.
You okay? You safe?
Yeah. I thought they were just following me.
And since they, of course, have no idea what's about to happen, they're still just casually talking about the bathroom. And then a few moments later, the first boxes must have triggered because this guy notices a cockroach and nopes his way out of there. And then he's quickly followed by the second dude. And I love it because now you just randomly see cockroaches start coming in frame. And so now that they know what they're up against, they call in the reinforcements with a mop. But it looks like he missed one. Or 2. Or 3. Actually 4. Scratch that. 5. And then as if perfectly on cue, right as the mop guy finishes his cleanup, the smoke begins. And this causes quite a commotion and draws quite a crowd, and it takes them a while, but they're eventually able to pinpoint the source of the smoke and gingerly take it off the premises. Followed soon thereafter by our rat friends. And this is possibly my favorite clip of the whole night, where you see a cockroach lead the way and wander all around as they argue and try and make sense of what in the world is possibly happening. And by this point you can tell the boss is pretty sure they're under attack, but just to remove any sense of doubt, we sent them one final package. And they almost opened it right there, but I guess with everything else that had already happened so far that night, they took it downstairs. And then this happened.
Oh, sorry, mal ein bisschen leiser, Leute.
Ah, sad.
Yeah, in fact, there's 4 of them, and they're uploading this footage to the cloud.
5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Activation complete. Recovery sequence initiated.
Oh, come on!
Schön ins Furzspray reingelehnt. Ih.
Alter, wie lang die das beobachten?
Special operation, we waited to see what the response would be, and we didn't have to wait long. Yesterday, those cuss words sent Ansh Solutions a package bomb, and it exploded, and there was a bad smell and sprinkler water, or whatever it was. These guys are playing good with us. I am reminding you guys, they must be in between us. We don't even know. And now we had them, because they were paranoid, and they didn't know which of their employees might have been compromised. Check the lunch boxes, pocket bags, shoes, ladies' purse as well. Even check the water.
Wie geil, jetzt wo sie raus sind und ihr Ding gemacht haben, machen die sich riesen Abfuck damit. Auch geil.
Whether there's some color mixed in it. I assume he's referring to the soap dye here. But be cautious, guys, seriously. They came to bad word all of us, and they are still trying to bust us. After that, there were a few more death threats, so we didn't think it was safe enough to launch our attacks on the other 3 centers to try and get them shut down. But the beautiful thing is, we didn't have to. Big centers in Kolkata and Delhi are closed from today, as well as Monday, as per the information I got from all my friends. We had created enough confusion and mass panic that not only did the other 3 centers get shut down, but we got all the large scam centers all across India shut down for a few days too. And if you add it up, that means those tiny cockroaches stopped $2 million from going from the victims to the scumbags. And I would say that's the perfect ending, but it actually gets even a little better. Once Ashton and Art were safely back home on American soil, they decided to troll that text group with those 55,000 scammers by uploading this gem to the chat.
Surprise, surprise, scammers! Art and Ashton over here. No matter how many numbers you remove from this group, we're still watching. Not only that, we've also downloaded every single person's contact information, all 57,000 of them inside this group. We have every single one of those contact information. We're submitting it to the FBI in the United States and the CBI here in India, so you guys better run and better watch out.
And so if you want to see how quickly the scammers started removing themselves from the chat group, as well as a lot more details of all their work on the ground over in India, you should go check out their video. And not surprisingly...
Digga, jetzt aber mal ganz im Ernst. Also, wenn das jetzt hilft, die Kontaktdaten zu haben, um da wirklich richtig Action zu machen, muss ich mich fragen, war das nicht sehr schwer? Man muss ja nur in die Telegram-Gruppe kommen. Cool. Polizei, da merkst du wieder, dass die Polizei involviert sein muss.
Ansh and the other scam call centers eventually
geht nicht per Fax, Olli.
Ja.
Ja, das stimmt.
Versteh mal.
Versteh doch mal.
Come back up, albeit this time with much tighter security. But they still didn't and still don't realize probably till this moment that we have access to their live camera feeds. So Jim improvised a bit, calling them out by their real names without giving away the fact he was just looking at them on the camera.
Yeah, hi sir, my name is Carolina Fernandez. I am calling you from the Microsoft.
Oh, hi Priya. Hi.
Who are you?
I'm a ghost. Idiot. Yeah, I don't
do
know
you
what.
Know my father's name?
I don't know, but is your father proud of you? What you do? Does he think you work for Microsoft?
Yes, of course.
But you don't work for Microsoft. Did you tell him that? Will I tell you one more name?
Yes.
Soini. Please talk to me.
What the fuck, bro?
Hello?
He also managed to change the way their voices sound when they would do outbound calls to their potential victims.
Was? Er kann die Stimmen von ihnen ändern, wenn sie andere anrufen? Das ist next level.
Who are you? May I know? Will I speak with...
You're speaking very strangely. What's up?
So to see a lot more of that quality entertainment, you should go check out his video. So after all that, we're sort of in a good news, bad news situation here. The good news is that because of some developments we've been involved in, the 4th center here is going to be raided by the authorities in India and shut down very, very soon. The bad news is that these other 3 are still very operational. And for reasons I can't say here, we don't have the same option to get them shut down like we do on the 4th one. Now you might ask, why not just privately reach out to the proper authorities in Kolkata where these 3 call centers are located? And the answer is, that's been tried before and it didn't work. While there are many good apples, there are a few bad apples that prevent anything from happening to these guys. So where does that leave us? Well, as they say, sunshine is a great disinfectant, and here's where you come in. We've invested a lot of resources and time and tried to make this video as entertaining as possible in the hopes that you'll consider sharing it for 2 reasons. Number 1, the more people are aware of how these scams work, the less effective they become and they lose their power. So please share it, especially with your older loved ones. And number 2, the more people that see this video and learn about these 3 specific call centers, the more the press will pick it up, especially in India. Heck, tweet our videos to the Kolkata police. This helps out the good apples because the bad ones can't just sweep all the evidence under the rug or quietly tip off the scam center bosses. The press and public can hold them accountable. We've seen this tactic work successfully in the past, and we have mountains of evidence against all these scam centers. If you
Ist das normal in Indien, dass die Polizei so Trophäenbilder macht, wie Jäger das mit ihrem geschossenen Bild machen?
Ja.
Digga, was zur Hölle?
Ja, Digga, das machen.
Überleg dir, das gäbe es in Deutschland. So Polizei
das machen die
so
ja auch, Olli. Aber
Echt?
du wurdest noch nicht verhaftet.
Okay. Alles klar.
If you are with the press or a law enforcement agency, send us an email to callcenterevidencepack@gmail.com and we'll share everything we have with you. If you combine them, these 3 centers have been in operation an astounding 29 years, and they're still scamming people of their life savings to this day, even right now as we release this video. So let's see what we can do. And depending on exactly what happens, I'll either post a follow-up video here on my YouTube channel or on my other social channels, so subscribe and all that stuff if you want to stay in the loop. GlitterBomb and cockroaches are just harmless entertainment, but our best chance of working together to shut these guys down for good is by shining a light to foster some accountability. Thanks for your help. Now let's make Bessie proud.
Cool.
Alright, Freunde, für alle, die das nicht verstanden haben, Mark Rober bittet euch, dieses Video auf jeden Fall allen Leuten zu schicken, die ihr kennt. Vor allem mit euren, ja, sag ich mal, älteren Familienmitgliedern über sowas zu sprechen. Weil wenn das die Runde macht, tatsächlich, was da für Maschen laufen, dann sinkt auch die Wahrscheinlichkeit, dass jemand darauf reinfällt und umso weniger erfolgreich laufen solche Scams. Dementsprechend, Chapeau, Mark Rober, again. Gute Aktion.
Hut ab.
Auch an die anderen, ja, die mitgemacht haben. Stark, also sich da auch hinzustellen. Trotz der Tatsache, dass die Ding mit dem Leben gedroht haben in dieser scheiß Telegram-Gruppe.
Auch die Leute, die da drin waren. Also nicht nur die 2 YouTuber, sondern vor allen Dingen die Secret Agents.
Ja.
Richtig, richtig krass. Ja.
Wild auf jeden Fall.
Die Helden vor Ort quasi.
Freunde, wenn euch das gefallen hat, lasst uns gerne einen Daumen nach oben da. Geht auf jeden Fall aufs Originalvideo, teilt das, lasst da einen Daumen nach oben da und ja, kommt dann einfach zurück zu uns und schaut euch direkt noch ein Video an. Vielen Dank.
Gleich.